Okay,
All right.
back in the saddle. For episode 2,
Episode 2.
a redneck and an immigrant walk into a bar. This is what happens, if anything.
Well, what happens is that two awesome friends start talking about stuff that just
Yep,
improv.
yep.
So, a little rainy for end of May for our lovely state of Georgia.
That is happening. Just as school is out now officially.
It is. Actually, I brought my daughter home back from UGA, and I know you can speak a lot about the school.
UGA.
She loved her first year there.
Good.
Absolutely loved it. We're so blessed that she actually got accepted to UGA, good Lord willing, and if he wants to, our son will get accepted there too.
Mm-hmm. I was there in the 1900s.
I remember. And as a matter of fact, I'll just one tidbit. One time, many years ago, when we went to Georgia game,
Yes.
you, me, and
What
two
year
of our
was that?
friends.
What year was that?
Probably
10 years.
2014, 2015.
Something like that.
And with your connections there,
Get
you
down
had
on the
us
field.
entered in what do you call it? Inside the hedges.
In the hedges. Athens, Georgia. What a great day that was. And it always is when we go to,
And we're going to come back about your experience in Georgia. But what I remember seeing the UGA football team entering the field, and you don't appreciate, well, I didn't appreciate what a monstrous guys they are.
Yeah.
As they, we're not small guys.
No.
You and me, we're both, God gave us some body structure. But this guy's walking in and just, one is bigger than the other, like a beautifully chiseled man.
The uniform makes it even more.
Of course, the padding.
Just huge. You don't realize when you hear, 6'7", 335 pounds, you don't think much
those
about
numbers.
it until you stand beside it and go, oh, okay.
Or if he runs into you.
Or if you're trying to block him. Then the weight of it literally starts to, sink in. Okay, now I see how the physics are going to work here.
So, Jim, you said you went to UGA a few years ago.
There's a part at the University of Georgia called Old College. And this part was the very first footprint of the university.
Okay.
1700s.
Wow.
So this is impressive in America.
It is.
Oh, 1780.
Well, to be fair, it's impressive everywhere.
Well, not so much in...
Well, in Europe, yes, there's some colleges of 15 or 1600, but still 1700 is quite impressive.
It goes way back. So, and the old college is what started it. And then, of course, that was just a small portion of what's there now.
Yeah.
It's gone on and on. But everything's changed, including, if I may, the perception of college and a college education from when I was there 40 years ago.
I think I have a few thoughts about college, but before we go there, I do want to a little bit just kind of highlight because you have some fascinating stories about your life in UGA, and some of the stories are incredible. You're a brilliant musician, guitar, piano, you sing fantastically well. But you had some experiences there that you would leave the stage and some other band will come in. Do share, because that's fascinating.
Well, I had one interesting experience that I will share with you. In my day, way back then, I was in a band. The name of the band was Film at 11.
Film at 11?
Film at 11, which is, back the newscast would break in, and they would say, a hot air balloon exploded today. Film at 11.
Okay, got it.
It was film then.
Yeah.
Video at 11, whatever.
Right,
we don't use that now, but they used to say things like that. So we called the band that. There, we were a cover band, and we played all the little college clubs and frat parties and sororities. We were playing this one particular club downtown Athens, Georgia.
Right.
And this goes way back
to
1988. Wow. And there were two bands playing there that were swapping Friday and Saturday nights. And it was our band, Film 11, and another little band kind of some arty type guys, and they called themselves REM.
That's just awesome. That's just awesome.
Well, they were, they were different kind of guys. I mean, art school guys. I think their singer Stipe was in art school, so they were a bit different, and their style of the things they wanted to play was a bit different. Right. All original. I mean, who wants to deal with that? Yeah. Well, certainly not the manager of this club. Okay, so we had a little meeting there with the manager, and he explained to our table and their table. He said, "Look, the reason that you're here is to get the kids in the club, get them dancing, get them thirsty, get them to the bar. Yep. It's the only reason you're here." Okay, so you film at 11 guys. You're doing a pretty good job playing all your 80s, The Cars, right. Loverboy, Billy Squiire, all the big hits of the time. We were playing the covers and giving it to them. REM, though, not so much. They were playing a lot of originals. So he said to them, "You REM guys, nobody wants to hear your originals.
Do a cover.
Okay, play some dance music. Play something to get the kids' music or consequences." So we walk outside, and I'm standing there beside the singer Michael Stipe. And I said to him, "Man, you guys have got to start playing more covers." And he said, "Well, we're really, trying pursuing our own music."
Yeah.
And I said, in a famous quote to Michael Stipe, "Well, good luck with that."
In some very hypothetical, maybe fantasy world, if he sees this video, would be so cool if he comments on this.
Yeah, well,
I know probability is less than
a long time ago.
I know, but it would be pretty cool.
But they were playing little back of the bar and little dances and little things. They were doing some covers.
Right.
But then they launched into strictly originals,
right.
which they turned out to be pretty good at. But I didn't know that. And even with the biggest of stars today, Mr. McCartney, Sir Paul,
sure.
If he says, "Okay, and the next one, ladies and gentlemen, is a new one off the new album," it's like, anyone want to
beer? I'll go get it.
Exactly. Even if he says that,
I know.
much less,
right.
Someone, so. It's a tough thing to promote your own your own art, but you have to stick with it, and apparently it worked out for them.
It did. And if my limited knowledge of beautiful town of Athens serves me correctly, REM is not the only band. No. I mean, the B-52s and they back in the 80s, the start of the Widespread Panic and Love Tractor and Pylon and all these college bands, and college radio was coming into vogue in the early 80s. And it was a new genre, really, with REM really being one of the main architects, in my opinion. So, and then they signed with a big contract and became rich and famous, and on pop radio, which I'm not sure they ever were shooting for, but no.
But it happened to them.
Would their style of music be called grunge, or that they kind of
I think
a little bit different?
Predated that. Predated, and regionally, that came from the Pacific Northwest. So I'm
Seattle area,
I'm not so sure. But this is a good time to bring up during that time.
The gentle touch was like, "Stop hitting the table."
You're hitting the table there. So. During that time, for me, just to be accepted and to go to college meant this.
Yep.
Okay, coming from a small town, it meant this, because a lot of people did not go to college. A lot of people did not graduate from high school.
Right.
High school graduation now.
It's rite of passage.
A complete rite of passage. I mean, but
it's maybe if I may, I don't know if this will accurately build a metaphor, but privilege versus right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Graduating high school and even college, it's like almost, I just did it. I
Yeah.
just did it.
Where are you going to grad school?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about that now,
Yeah.
but in the 70s, certainly not a slam dunk.
Sure.
Okay, a big percentage of the kids, especially coming from a factory town, they leave early
Yep.
and go to work early, and they marry early.
Right.
They have kids early.
Right.
And that's just the way it was, and not many went on to college. It was one way out of a small town, and it certainly was for me. But it meant often you would be the first person in your family
Really?
to attend,
Interesting.
much less graduate, and I was.
So a 10 didn't automatically equate to graduating.
and today it doesn't either.
I find myself grossly unprepared, but I wonder what's the percentage, let's say 100% entered college.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of them graduating?
Yeah. Well, they have a retention rate everywhere.
Okay.
For example, at Duke, the retention rate, I read this recently, is like 95%.
And that's presumably good, right? It's Duke.
Yes. 2 years later or 4 years later, they're all there.
Right.
They didn't leave.
And what would be, let's say, I don't know, well, UGA and
Less.
something less.
Because of finances, grades,
and life happens.
life. People leave.
Yeah. Okay.
People leave. So I remember distinctly sitting in freshman orientation in a it was in a big conference center.
Yep.
All the freshmen were there, so there were a lot of big freshman class at UGA. And I remember the speaker saying, "I want everyone here to look around at all of your incoming freshman friends here now." And he goes, "In 4 years, half of you won't be here."
Wow.
And
That's a cold shower right there.
And I sort of went, "Oh."
You're kind of hoping that you're in the other half, right? You're almost assuming, well, I'll be here. And everyone else, right?
Are you? Are you? I wasn't so sure. But half, that's big.
That's big. That's huge.
I mean, so that retention rate is not, so, but my point is that I think that a lot of people today are trying to discount a college education in lieu of, how about this? A trade school. Okay.
I have some provocative thoughts on that, but since you shared a little bit of your story growing up in a small town and going to college, I'll share a little bit of my story. I grew up in a country that does not exist, Soviet Union, the original evil empire, the real evil empire.
And you went to the University of Soviet Union? Good basketball team.
I played basketball. I'm not going to admit that in America.
Yeah, right.
But no, so... And I was from very educated family, grandparents educated, parents very educated. I know it's hard. I would have fooled you, right?
I did not know that.
yeah. Dad, really smart. That would be equivalent of near like PhD level in math and physics, not academia. Very practical, engineer. Mom, concert pianist, and finished 17, 18 years of conservatory, musical school conservatory. So for me, going to higher education was not even not the rite of passage. It was like assumed,
exactly.
Like I could not go.
Exactly.
I'm going to use harsh words. My parents would disown me, but they won't. But
yeah.
They wouldn't. But it was just yes, right? And you had to pass entry exams. And I'll admit something. I didn't. First year, I didn't get enough points. So I went to work that year, and then next year I got in.
What do they call these schools?
So the school where I went to and where I met my lovely wife, that's still married to me, was called Polytechnic Institute. Right? Later it got renamed because that was right at the edge of Soviet Union collapsing, so it got renamed into Armenian State University of Engineering. I believe it still carries the same name, but for many generations, it was Polytechnic. And I lived across the street. So To me, going to higher education was just like you got like it was just part of what you do. You know, you go to bathroom, you wash your hands. You know, you eat with your fork and spoon or whatever. Right? It was just one thing that you do. And I learned later in life that it wasn't necessarily like that for everyone. Right? So the provocative thought that I had on this, it came about, well, throughout my life, but also I had I listened and read a lot of, now rest in peace, Sir Ken Robinson, and I had actually the honor of meeting him. And he has one of the most fascinating, well, he has multiple, but one of the most fascinating talks about education on TED.com. You know, I would love for people to watch that. He has millions and millions and millions of views, and his point was that I tend to agree with that back in the day, as you described, and I'm not trying to show our age, but back in the day, you know, if you didn't finish high school, right, you would get this much salary or whatever you want to get, right? You'll get paid this much. If you finished high school, you'll get paid this much.
Military, you had to go?
We had ROTC, 1 day a week. So after finishing higher education, you got lieutenant title or rank.
Right.
But if you went to college, your salary was this. If you went to, you know, grad, yours. And that system, we know, we can argue that was more of a British education system, right? Where it's math, language, maybe some literature, you know, kind of across the world, because the sun never set over British Empire, you know, a few years ago. And that has changed, right? You know, you can go to a clothing store, and I'm by no means I'm saying working there is any kind of knock or anything like that, not at all. And you meet the associates, and they all went to colleges, you know, be that UGA or maybe Georgia Tech, or I'm using our local schools, right? Or Georgia College. Yeah. So finishing college doesn't automatically necessarily equate to you're getting a job at, you know, one of our large corporations here immediately, you know, Coke, Delta, UPS, right, Depot, IHG, etc. Right. So as my kids were coming to age of, you know, high school years, I caught myself having a few conversations with them, saying it will be interesting, because I was in the corporate world for many years in leadership roles, and I said, you know, if you finish high school, one finishes high school and then goes first year, works, you know, free of pay, right? Just kind of like voluntary work in some corporation, just doing, you know, in IT department. Let's use IT as an example because I know that field. Next year, you get paid, let's just say $10, $15, $20 an hour doing some mundane IT work. Third year, you do a little bit more sophisticated engineering and maybe your salary goes up. Fourth year, you are maybe a developer or a quality assurance person or designer or what have you. So that's this individual's 4 year. This individual went to, let's take one of the strongest technology schools that we have here in US, Georgia Tech. And he or she finished 4 years in Georgia Tech. Like, who would I hire? Like, without missing a heartbeat, I would hire the first person. Because his or her knowledge base, applied knowledge, are far superior. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. But that was my thinking process. Mm-hmm. Until it came time for our daughter, who's now in UGA, thank God, right, to go to college, which we just made that decision. It wasn't like I was trying to sway them one way or the other. I was just sharing my thoughts with them. But what I didn't necessarily appreciate as much is robbing the children, my kids, or any kid, right, the college years. Because she had a spectacular first year in UGA, and she loves her time there. Mm. Right? But the provocative thought here is a lot of job postings today in a more traditional corporate saying BS required, MS desired. Right? A question mark that I have in my head, why is it required? Because we're going to hire people based on what they know, not what they have studied. Now, a counter argument to that could be that demonstrates that you can study and learn. But so that's what was, you know, you meant when we spoke about college being, you know, a graduation or education rite of passage, but it does not carry that same value.
No, and the perception of of college has changed in the way that some companies now are saying, to your point, everything is very specific now.
Yes.
And we're going to have to train them
Yeah.
in our way. So whatever you're coming with, your degree, your field of study may not be exactly what they need. They have to train you anyway. And so I think that that's contributed in sort of, for lack of a better term, devaluing the college experience. I know the money now, which has always been a problem with going to college, even more so now because it's so expensive now across the board. And look at the debt. This is a big one. The debt they're coming out with is not really worth it, is it?
It's interesting you brought it up because what I kind of suppressed in my conversation with my children about those 4 years, this individual A, and 4 years of graduated individual B, I suppressed the financial side. But if you go to a reputable school, right? Let's not talk about in-state tuition and our
out-of-state.
Miller and Hope, but and you pay, let's just say $50,000 a year in scholarships. Let's say you don't have parents who are writing you a check. You walk out of the college with $200,000 debt, and that debt, even if you declare bankruptcy, that debt does not go away. So
that's a whole that you start with.
You start with that. So this person worked for 4 years and knows what he or she is doing. This person has a great education, walks out with a $200,000 debt. When I say 50, some colleges could be far exceeding that. Now, granted, some could be less. But I think from the school, like a high quality state school, private, we're not even talking Ivy. Ivy could be $100,000 a year, right? Yeah. That's an interesting phenomenon where one could ask the question: is it worth going to college?
Well, yes, for a lot of reasons, and I mean, do you have to? No. The famous Steve Jobs. I know what I want to do. Right. I want to build computers. I don't need, computer science here. I'm just going to do it now. So there's lots of stories like that. You don't need to, but the college experience
that's the thing.
Is much more is much bigger than socially,
absolutely,
and everything. All of the experience, and maybe you get to study abroad. I mean, that's invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely,
that's invaluable.
Absolutely.
So I mean, all of that, and I find that people, for the most part, look back on their college experience as just one of the
highlights
of their life.
But what we probably can agree on that in today's day and age, that finishing college does not automatically mean that you will have a higher paid position job.
No.
That if you did not go to college. And let's take away the fringes. Well, Bill Gates dropped out. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out. Those are
anomalies.
We know them by first name.
They're anomalies.
They're anomalies. But in the reality, the bell curve of the people.
Yeah.
Right? Finishing college does not automatically mean. And I'm going to just use some broad numbers. Let's say after high school, you would have gotten paid $25,000 a year, arbitrary number. Right? Finishing college does not automatically mean you will get paid $45,000 a year. It doesn't. There is no equation sign. You could, and likely you would,
right?
But there is no, linear.
Yeah, but you're not going to go on to be a surgeon, corporate lawyer without that prerequisite. Nobody skips straight to law school without college.
But again, you brought up another topic that I suppressed in my conversation with my children, is that when it gets to specialized education, right? Doctor,
right.
Lawyer, kind of like almost, I don't want to use the word regulated, but there is some regulatory requirements for you to have that, pass the bar, pass the medical exam, what have you, to become that. You're right, but that's 20%. Let's be real, maybe less. 80% is, just, why are you in college? Well, just, study, I don't know yet.
Well, I think that when I went to college as a freshman, and people would say, what's your major? Yeah. I would say undeclared. Because it was a valid choice at the time. Yeah. And now as I look back on that, I think that is ridiculous. I mean, that you don't know what you want to be. You don't know what you want to study. Yet here I am.
Yes,
doing
I'm here.
doing what? Well, going to parties and highly social things like that. But even some schools, for example, I know that when you get your undergrad degree and you want to go to grad school, they won't let you go directly in. You must
like a year off, right?
1 or 2 years to get in the workforce and really, hone in on who you are and what you want to do, and then come to grad school. I think that's a great...
that makes sense.
And then some countries, you have to have military service out of high school before you go to college.
So in Soviet Union, which probably those examples are irrelevant, but there were periods where you had to go to military right after high school, or get into college first year, then go. I think it was 18 was the year when you would serve 2 years. Then if you're in college, you get a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like you don't have to serve. Right, you can get a
deferment.
Thank you very much. I can find that word in my brain. Deferment.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, you studied ROTC 1 day a week. I think it was men only. If my memory, I'm 90% sure it was men, 95. Deferment. So it varied. I think in a country like Israel, everybody serves. Period. Every gender, everybody serves. So I think it depends on the country. I don't know. A country like China, I don't know their internal ruling.
I think there's mandatory military service.
That's something I'll look into.
Yeah.
All right. I think this college topic was interesting. We can probably continue this for a while.
Well, it's a lot to chew on.
It is. Your beautiful children went to college, right?
They did, and they both went to grad school, and in spite of their genetics from my side.
Mom is very smart.
Well, that goes without saying. But I think that I spoke to some young person recently, and I said, "Oh, where are you in school?" And they said the name of a school that I'm not familiar with. And I said, I must have looked at her like, I haven't heard of that. A very small liberal arts college somewhere in Washington or something like that. And I'm like, and she said, it's a small liberal arts college in Washington. And I said, so what do you study there? And she says, French literature. And I thought, why?
Did you say that?
No, but I said that. And then I wanted to say, and this is okay with your dad? What are you going to do? Teach French lit? I mean, how do you parlay that into a career?
Sometimes you hear this in those famous blogs or videos or even books when people say, follow your passion. Follow your passion. Oftentimes who say that? People who are rich. When you're rich, you should follow your passion. Yeah, your advice is that.
But when you're not, you need to get a job.
Sometimes don't follow your passion.
Yeah.
Follow something that you're good at to make money.
Yeah.
And do your passion after.
I think my own mother was very pragmatic in a way, and I know this because I said to her, I was watching some really interesting thing on TV. These archaeologists was digging up things in Egypt, and I thought, wow, that's what a exciting job that would be. And I said to my mom, hey, I think I'm gonna be an archaeologist because it seems like this great adventure.
I'm dying to hear what she said.
And it can be a job. And she said, you don't want to do that. There's no money in that. And what she's saying is just, you need to make a living, not chase some adventure.
I think the problem is with that and younger generation is that they have those examples of, say, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, even, Aunt Mimi told John Lennon, guitar is good, but you need to learn something to make money. Then he made a gold plaque with that.
That's right. You'll never make a dime.
We're talking about this many people,
and
maybe a few more fingers, out of billions.
Yeah.
So, they are not necessarily the compass, the North Star to follow, because that's 0.0000, etc. percent of people who actually make it, and then we know them.
Well, what percentage, back to the undeclared 18-year-old?
Yeah.
And I was one, I was that kid. I mean, how many 18-year-olds, and I don't think my own kids even could really answer the question, can say, this is my direction, this is my target, I want to go to pharmacy school, I want to be a vet, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do. I think it's a very small percentage.
Very small. And that's why I wanted to react to your undeclared at first, because truly probably first year or two in Soviet, right? You applied for a certain college, certain faculty, and then under that faculty, certain, I don't know how to translate, but specification. So ours was, the faculty was called cybernetics. Today would be called computer science and cybernetics. Right? And the specialization had to do with the systems development and all that, right? Mm-hmm. So you went for that. Now, in my case, that was my dad's path, and for me there was fascination with computers and the whole technology. But I think to your point, and I agree, especially in the current generation, an 18-year-old, what does he or she know where they're going to be in 7 years of their life? I'm not saying college is 7 years. I'm just saying, if you ask 18-year-old, where are you going to be in 25? How many of them can answer that question correctly?
It's one of the best questions to a young person is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yep.
And look at the expression on their face. It's like...
But let's be fair, even though you and I are older than 18, oftentimes even people in our age group may struggle with the answer. And they may even start saying by word they're not going to be. It's an interesting psychological thing when you say, who are you? Well, I'm not this and this and this. What do you like? What I don't like, right? So where are you going to be in 5 years? Well, I know I'm not going to be working at this job.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm not going to be living in this house, right? And then the proverbial drinking margaritas on the beach. I always found it fascinating. I get the metaphor of it, and for me personally, right, I love the sea and ocean and that salt water and the beach. And I always have this image when we're going to go to the beach. And we've been to many, many places all around the world, including our lovely panhandle in Florida. When I get there, after the first 2 hours on the beach, I gotta do something, and I admire people who can. I'm a voracious reader. I've read thousands of books in my life, right? But reading on the beach, at some point, like the sun is too bright, I know, like my head shadow is in the book, and I gotta do something.
Well, not everyone's like that. My wife knows this. No matter where we are, and I've been fortunate enough to travel around the globe, and I've seen some things. If I had the penthouse suite at the Taj Mahal, and just the freedom to do whatever I wanted there, by the 5th day, I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how great it is, how
it is, and how
it's time to do something.
But okay, so playing. How long can you stay on the beach, just enjoying your presence on that beautiful sand?
I have to go for walks.
Yes.
Anyone?
Swim.
Anyone?
Anything. Ice cream, beer.
First, I'll address my group.
Yeah. Just
people in my family and my group. Anybody want to go for a walk? No. And then I'll just ask out loud to other beachgoers. Anyone want to go for a walk? It'll be interesting, I assure you. But back to a previous point you made about the young people learning not only what they want to do, but what they don't want to do.
Right.
Is part of the experience. It's like this kid, and I think so many people have heard about this guy that quit his job at the tire company. Yeah. And he did a vlog of all this. I don't like my life.
Yep.
I don't like working in corporate America.
Right.
I have a dream. I want to sail around the world. Yet I don't know how to sail, and I don't have a boat. But that's a detail. So he quits his job. He cashes in his 401k, and he goes and buys a boat that needs a lot of work. He doesn't know how to sail. Okay, he's in Oregon, doesn't know how to sail. He starts learning, and a year later, he cast off from Oregon for Hawaii, and he documents the whole thing. And the interesting, but no, he's not the first one to think of this. Sure. Many, many people have sailed around the world alone.
Yep.
You know, it's interesting, but it happens all the time. But there's something about this kid that tapped in to the collective national consciousness in a way of him saying, my job is going nowhere. What is the point of all this? I want to do something more meaningful. I'm gonna chase a dream. Mine happens to be to sail a boat somewhere, and he did it. And 10 days after he leaves, he's got 1.5 million people following him on a daily basis.
But that's another, you can count on this hand. I actually had a colleague, and if someone's gonna watch this from my past life, that I worked at, they will know exactly who I'm talking about. I probably can use a first name, right, without offending anyone, right?
Maybe.
His name was Bill. Smart guy. I'll stop with the descriptors. His thing was that him and his wife, and they're two very small, let's just say 4 and 2 children. He's gonna quit everything, sell his house. He was very frugal. They're gonna buy either a sailboat or a catamaran or something, and they're gonna live that life forever. And he planned that very meticulously, diligently. He created websites on that. He created a donation site on that, and all that. And we all knew that's Bill's destination. And his wife was 100% into it. Well, children were too small to say they were or not. Well, long and short of it, I think he did. He quit. He bought the boat. The boat broke down somewhere in Florida. And I guess the end. That kind of, it just clicked. The story clicked. So I think that gentleman, or the guy that you were describing, the 1.5 million followers, those are exceptions. There are probably so many. And sometimes when you have this moment, and some people refer to it as midlife crisis, or right. By the way, midlife crisis is such an arrogant moniker, because at 40 I had a midlife crisis. That assumes that you presume that you're going to have another 40 years of life ahead of you.
We all presume that.
Well, but that's. I think it's a little audacious. I think our most optimistic. How about that? It's very optimistic. I think we demonstrate our optimism every night when we put the alarm clock.
Yeah.
Because we assume we're going to wake up. But anyway, so sometimes in life we all went through it when you kind of almost want to pause and reflect. Am I going in the direction where I want? Is this why? I'm going to use in my case, in our case, we're believers. Is this why God put me on Mother Earth? Is this what I want? So those are good moments to pause and reflect, or as Mark Twain, in one of his famous quotes, said, when you find yourself on the side of majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Great saying. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pause, reflect, and completely change direction.
Yeah.
Or quit your job and say, I'm gone.
Well, a lot of people want to, though.
Well, yeah, but
it doesn't matter if it's a sailboat or what.
I don't mean you, individual, you not liking where you are, just by ending it doesn't mean you're going to like what's next. I think you need to find what you like, what's next. And then, and maybe I'm being a little cautious on this one, and then kind of balance it on how you transition. Otherwise, it could be, it could have some...
I think the concept of searching for the greener grass.
Yes.
The concept, whatever it may be. In this case, it was a sailboat.
Yep.
In a lot of men, it's a Harley Davidson.
Sure.
Or a speedboat, or some sort of thing, distraction.
Yep.
You've got the concept, and then you have the application. You actually buy it.
Yeah.
The Winnebago.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the family in there, and we're going to drive to the Grand Canyon.
And live that life.
And we're going to live out there, and little do they know that 9 out of 10 people they're like 2 weeks later, they're like, this is for sale. We are going home. I know someone that tried it. But the concept certainly seems attractive.
It does.
You know, if I just had a Harley Davidson, do you know the buyer's remorse is higher in a motorcycle and a ski boat than any other thing?
Well, you know, I could probably trump that probably with the fractional vacation homes, what they call it.
Timeshare?
Timeshare. That probably is the highest buyer's remorse, probably.
That's a big one.
But,
that's a big one.
You know, it's speedboat I never had affection to, but the Harley, I always had this thing in my head, this chopper when your arms are here and you can see the front wheel is so far out.
Well, you see that as an American
Yeah, I mean, it's quintessential
symbol
Americana.
of freedom.
Absolutely. You know, the roaring engine.
No, that's it. It's a symbol of freedom.
Yes.
The Harley, the sailboat, the
Yeah,
Winnebago, whatever.
Right.
That is what I want.
Yeah.
Not this corporate thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
want that. And then you finally pull the trigger on that and you get out there.
Yeah.
And it may not be
Yes, as you anticipated.
suddenly you're just
the
in
freedom is not quite.
you're just in the middle of the ocean.
You're just that same old guy on the bike.
and you're terrified. And you're like, this is a little too much freedom
I agree
right
with
now.
that. I agree with that.
It's a little too much freedom.
But I came close to buying Harley a couple of times in my life.
Yep.
And all of them ended up not happening. You know, but I could see somewhere when I'm old and maybe I'll have it in my garage just to come out and maybe polish the chrome.
Well, then that would be the best thing. Because you plan on, look, you get one and I'll get one, and on nice weekends we'll go out and ride together.
Yeah.
And it happens once.
Yeah.
And then the next time you're not available.
So very different company, very different bill. He's now, this is a Connecticut story where I used to be. He's now in Seattle or outskirts of Seattle. Him and I said, we're going to buy a Harley each and we're going to go for a ride. That was our thing. We were back in Connecticut, New York days.
Yep.
He said, Alex, this weekend I'm going to buy a used one. Couple grants just to get my kind of remember, and I don't know how to ride a bike, just so you know. I know how to ride bicycles and mountain bikes. So he gets it. I'm slowly convincing my wife, we didn't have kids back then. I said, it will be just, speed limit. And that day when they were supposed to come to our house, his wife calls us from the emergency room. He didn't make the turn. Broken. So that stopped my first Harley desire to buy.
Yep.
But yeah, so and the other thing that was interesting, also back in the day in Connecticut, one of the guys who worked with me, Neil, his dad was gonna go through I think retina replacement surgery or something along those lines, and his doctor said, let's wait until April, May. We're gonna have a lot of organs available for that. And his reaction was, why? He said, biker's going to be on the road.
Whoa.
So it's when the proverbial, it's not an if, it's a when. That's real. That's very real.
Yeah.
Now, the way we drive on the roads here in our lovely Georgia, greater Atlanta, would you want to be on a bike on 285?
No, I wouldn't do that at all. But as you get older, you get more conservative.
Yes.
And it's not worth the risk. But if I were 22, that sense of adventure can overwhelm your sense of self-preservation.
What was that Churchill's? I think it was Churchill's famous quote: "If you're young and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're old and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain." So I guess we're a little bit, and I think his interpretation of word liberal might have been a little bit different,
looser than
a little different. Liberal, I think, in a more
adventuresome,
like you're open to anything.
Exactly.
Safe, right?
Exactly.
It's not necessarily a political affiliation or certain doctrine. It's more around And conservative, you're conserving the values that way.
In my 20s, I would be at the front of the line to do something probably stupid or adrenalized.
Yep.
And now, you guys go ahead. Go ahead, kids.
So,
It's just the way it is.
I would, when you said you guys go ahead, I'll tell you an anecdote, or it's not even a joke, but one time in a team building event, they took us to the mountains in Northern California, beautiful secluded resort. Cell phones were not working back then; they were Blackberries. But there was one spot that you could go get a bar to call home, and the next day team building exercise was zip lines. Jim, I won't go into a lot of details, but if I tell you that I smelled death being on that zip line on the top of the tree, on the top of the mountain, that you go, it was not my thing. We're back in Armenia with family, and it's between those beautiful mountains, they have a zip line that is like a few kilometers, couple miles, I don't remember, but it was like through the depth between that line and the ground was, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters.
Yeah.
So my wife, being more adventurous, and my son back then, much younger, says, "Yes, I'm gonna do it." My daughter and I said, "We will watch." And then my wife got in that seat, and they were just, I said, "Can you give me that wedding ring just in case?" So that was the joke. But they enjoyed it. My daughter and I enjoyed watching it.
One year for my birthday, my wife gave me a skydiving adventure.
Oh, really?
And I had the option one is
with parachute, the other one
without a parachute. No, with a combination, tandem.
Yeah, attached with the instructor.
Yeah, so I think most people do that.
Solo versus, okay.
I said no.
You went by yourself.
I want the solo jump. Now that one, if you go tandem, you can basically go up in 10 minutes because you're tied to the guy, and
right, and he's
doing all the work.
The whole thing. Yeah.
So your plane leaves in 10 minutes. But if you want the solo, it is a 6-hour class, and it's more money. But I said no. I want to do that. Now I don't even know why I said that.
That was my question. Why?
I was once again, I was much younger, and I go through it all the so-called training, and we go up in a plane like a little crop duster 1950s Cessna.
Yeah.
I mean, you needed a parachute to go up in this plane because you may not get back. But so just before we were about to leave, the guy who started the class just in front of me, it was his turn to come down, and he was solo as well. And the jumping out of the plane part is easy. Gravity will help you. You just step off the strut of that wing and you go. And the ride down is quite easy. You need to keep yourself from tumbling.
How do you do that?
Well, I mean, you can manipulate with your arms and legs and try and lay flat. You don't want to be doing this because the chute. So and then now it gets to the good part. Pulling that ripcord, and let me tell you, Hail Mary.
Did the thought go through your head? What if?
What if? And where's that back up again? But then the really sticky part, literally, is the landing. And as you're coming, the chute deployed, and you're pulling down, and it will rock you back and forth. And as you pull down, it will slow you down.
So, I've never done it.
Yeah.
I've seen movies. So when you pull one, it turns. Pull it. And then when you pull both, it slows you down.
It rocks you back and slows you way down.
Okay.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
As you land.
As you're about 15 feet off the ground.
Okay.
The bad news is it's very difficult to simulate the landing in a classroom.
Yeah.
You need to do it. But until you've done it.
It's like swimming.
The perception, that ground is coming faster than you might anticipate.
So what would you say the speed? It's fully deployed. Like if you correlate that to highway speed.
Yeah, I mean, as you're coming in, planing in, if you don't rock back and slow down, you
break your legs.
Oh yeah, you were moving. You're moving. You got to be doing 40 miles an hour or something.
So movies that they show, like you land, you take the chute, and you get the gun. It's not like it's.
That's scary. A movie. but they're so good at rocking back that they're able to step and just land on their feet, running.
How was yours?
That's timing. The guy before me comes in And I thought to myself,
Hang on, are you watching him from the air?
I'm on the ground.
Guy after you, so not before you.
As the guy before me.
So he jumped before you.
Yeah, and
you
then
landed before.
And
before
then they're
him.
going to land and pick me up.
I got you.
So I'm watching the guy, and as he's coming in really fast. And I keep waiting for him to slow down.
Do this.
And I'm thinking, he is waiting too long. And sadly, I was right. And he just, how far am I from the ground? That timing is very difficult the first time.
Yeah.
He waited too late. And by the time he pulled, he hits the ground and just tumbles and rolls. And it's just a heap of, a person just lying there in the grass. This was very much disconcerting to me.
So what happened to him?
He hurt his knee.
Okay, he survived.
But they came and helped him up, and they said, you waited too late. And he says, I know.
Really?
And then they came over and said, are you ready? And I said... Sort of, I was so far into it, financially
you
and time, time and money. I had to do it. So I went up in the plane, and the two big things were when I pulled this ripcord, is the chute going to deploy? And it did.
So hang on,
huge relief.
So you jump.
Yeah.
How far? How far up are you?
I think we're up 10,000 feet. 10,000 feet, and just. Okay. But that sensation
so 3 kilometers
is
2 miles.
Is amazing. Is amazing. Just
really. And you just go.
And you're.
Are you straight?
You're gone.
Like you're going.
When I first jumped out, I was mostly. Okay. But then you achieve this.
So you
position.
Actually kind of you're controlling.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And even if you move your hand,
you change your body position.
You start doing this. Yeah. So it's very.
So how long was your free fall?
Subtle.
Like, second, minute? Like...
No. I think you fall. Maybe you're watching an altimeter, and when you hit.
Oh, really?
When you hit, I'm fuzzy on these numbers, but you fall for 5,000, 6,000 feet. Deploy the chute. And then now you need to land in the designated landing zone, not over there.
Okay. But your designated landing zone is correlated to where you jump off the airplane.
Yeah,
presumably.
You're over it.
Right. Okay.
And you just hope that something doesn't go wrong. People have gotten tangled in power lines and had very less than satisfactory landings.
So back to you. You pull. Opens.
It opens. You hear the sheet.
Yeah.
And then boom.
You get pulled immediately.
Huge sense of relief.
Yeah.
And then now it is time to meander to that landing zone. And all I can think about is this guy that just plowed right into the ground.
You're doing the pull-up exercises as you land.
The problem is if you do it early, you rock, and then it releases.
So the timing is essential.
Yeah, you don't want to be too early, and then you can't be too late, obviously, with the guy before me. So I was really worried about this so-called, buffer zone.
What's the distance between you and the land that you need to start doing the pull-up?
It's probably 30 feet, but it's moving very fast.
It's close. Okay.
It's coming. It's coming.
What would you say the speed with the chute of landing? Is it like 10 miles, 15 miles? Like I have no idea.
Well, if you do it right, like the pros.
You don't do it. Like if
you don't do it.
Yeah. Fast? It's fast?
It's got to be 30, 40 miles an hour that you would hit the ground.
Fast. Okay. All right.
Because you're just planing in.
Yeah.
It's much faster if your chute doesn't open.
but no one tells the story.
Nobody really knows. But fortunately, I wasn't spot on with the timing, but not too badly off. So I pull down, the chute rocks open, and then here comes the ground. And I hit my feet.
Heels down?
Yeah, I hit my feet and sort of baseball slide into the grass, which I was thrilled with. No injury.
You know who was not thrilled with that landing?
The guy before me?
No, your wife who bought the extra life insurance for you.
Yeah.
That was the investment.
Damn it.
And then she never got back.
No. It was thrilling. The point of the story is that was the way my mind worked then.
Would you do it today?
It's a good question. It's a good question because lots of the stuff I did as a young single guy,
but I'm just saying, this
I would not do
particular
now.
one, would you like today?
Probably not. Probably not. Why risk it?
Yeah.
Why the risk?
Yeah.
Now I ask myself that now, but I never asked myself why the risk then.
Oh, I know. The risk was part of our life back when we were younger. It was just life is risky, right?
It is.
What was that? There was a famous saying in corporate world:
Safe is risky. Corporate BS. All right, Jim. I think we spoke pretty long time about colleges, and then your story
I think we
about
covered
the
all that.
shoot was really cool. Do you think it's a logical? Listen, as we close down, do you watch podcasts? Do you have favorites?
Yeah. I'll listen to them driving sometimes.
Yeah. Who, like, if you were to name, and I'm not going to say top 3 or top 1, like, what do you catch yourself watching?
It's not so much personalities, but subject matter for me.
That's fair.
Like I've listened to history something,
Yeah.
blah, 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 know your history.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, put that one on.
Yep.
But that's just me.
Yeah, I enjoy very much Jordan Peterson. He's one of my absolute favorites, and one of my birthday presents last year before, my wife got me the VIP. We met him, photos and all that. Also, very much enjoy Patrick Bet-David. He goes by PBD, and it's interesting. The guy, U.S. military immigrant, U.S. military, built his own business, sold his business, and now he's podcasting. This is an empire to a degree, and I could be wrong on this, which I was wrong about our men and women in Vietnam. The number, I was grossly off. I apologize for that. But I think when Tucker Carlson got fired from Fox News Channel, PBD offered him $100 million contract to be part of his, the Valuetainment, his production company. Maybe I'm misnumbering the name of it, but not the Valuetainment, but it's not production. So I enjoy listening to them, but you're right. Sometimes subject matter, kind of, you go into down that rat's hole. Like back in the day, and searching on Google, you search for what's the best parachute for a first-time jump, and then 3 hours later, you're researching the school lunch program in North Korea, and you're perfectly satisfied with your journey, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes podcasts, the subject matter captivates you, and then you kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper. Education, history.
Well, it's either entertainment value, it's either educational, informative, or if you're listening to personalities, it's usually interviews.
Yep.
With interesting people. And that's a good idea. If we just knew an interesting person, we could ask them to be a guest.
I think we have a few.
I don't think we do.
You see, I have a better opinion of our friends than you do. Listen, let's do, I've seen those on podcasts when they say subscribe. Hit a thumbs up.
Nobody knows what that means. No one knows what it means. Well, what I think our sign off is let's put a bookmark here.
Right here.
And we reconvene next time.
All right, I'm going to go turn off the camera.
All right.